Radio WRNR Studios. It's time for Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob Mario and David Welch.
Good morning. Thank you, Cliff. Welcome to the program. This first segment of the show brought to you by Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies. When it comes to your home, auto, farm, or business, we're trusted, reliable, and experienced at Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies. Good morning. Rob here along with my co-host David Welch.
Happy Monday, Rob.
Happy Monday, Dave.
And thank you to all of our listeners who are starting your week off with Rob and Dave here in the morning.
A program note, there is some internet problem that exists and started in the world on Friday. It is preventing our stream from going out. So those of you who know people who listen on the stream, tell them sorry, it's not our fault.
But if they're listening on the stream, they're not hearing this anyway, are they?
No, I didn't address the people listening on the stream. I said those of you who know people who listen on the stream.
Yeah, you were very clear about that.
They're complaining to you.
I was just adding to your point.
Just say, sorry, they tried. What could they do?
Find a radio.
It wasn't their fault.
Get in your car.
Dog ate their homework.
Tell them to take a drive.
What's the worst excuse you think you ever came up with for the reason why your schoolwork was late to your teacher?
Oh, I'd have to think about that one. I think one time I said something to the effect of my mother had to be rushed to the hospital and was in surgery.
Really? You played the mother in surgery?
I think I did that.
I'm surprised you. That's easily debunked.
I know. I got caught. I got caught for it. Yeah, sure. Every time, the 2 or 3 times I lied in my life, I got caught for it.
I did. My worst one probably was in college at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. I had Italian class. You had to take a foreign language at Duquesne for 2 years.
That's not fair. You took Italian?
It was actually because my grandmother spoke a Sicilian dialect, and there's about 30 of those.
Oh, I see.
So the words that I learned weren't necessarily the pure Italian words, right?
Yeah.
So there was one day I didn't have my work done, and what the teacher, Eugenia Squarecki, would have you do is she would have you go up and go in front of the class and do whatever. So I wasn't prepared, so I wrote a note saying that I had laryngitis and I couldn't do the speaking part in front of the class. She looked at me and she made a face, but she didn't want to get into it with me, so she just shook her head, and that was the end of that. And so later that day, I'm working as an attendant in the parking lot. I used to, when I was my first 2 years at Duquesne, I was a student aide at the police department. And I got the gate arm was broken at the faculty parking lot, and I was stationed up there. They told me to go up there and make sure the flow of cars goes and whatever. Well, who pulls into the staff, the faculty parking lot but Eugenia Squarecki? And she's looking at me, and I'm going, okay, whatever you say, don't say anything out loud, just arm motions, point but don't talk. You'll blow your cover.
Well, and speaking of Italy, I was at the gym today, and Bill and Bonnie Stubblefield have returned from 20 days in Italy, so we welcomed them home. It was nice to see them this morning. They spent part of it on a boat or ship,
Not surprised.
I guess, small ship. And I'm thinking, wouldn't it be like if you were the captain of a ship and you had Bill Stubblefield on board? Wouldn't that be awful? Because he'd probably be hanging up on the deck with you the whole time.
You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, everyone else would be down at the pool or having a good time, having drinks. Bill would be up telling him, how to do it right.
You're not doing it the right way. Hey, John Overington asked me to pass along happy birthday greetings to Earl Pee Wee Simpson, who turns 89 years old today and listens to our show. So, Earl, happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Pee Wee. I wonder how he got the name Pee Wee.
If you go on John's Facebook page, there are some wonderful pictures, by the way, of Earl's birthday party. And John asks that as we approach the July 4th Independence Day holiday, remember the veterans like Earl and his brothers who have given and defended our freedom. Freedom is not free. Thank you, Earl, and the millions of American men and women who have defended our freedom.
Very nice. Well, I am conflicted today, Rob. I have a conflict deep inside my heart. As a diehard Laker, lifelong Laker fan.
Yeah, this is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and one who is not a LeBron James fan at all.
Why not?
Yeah, just don't care for the guy. Arrogant, jumps teams, not loyal, all for himself. Quite possibly, along with Michael Jordan, I recognize maybe the greatest player ever, along with MJ. Maybe not that high, but he's in that league. And just, but as a guy who wants to see the Lakers make a comeback and do well and get back in the game and, compete with the Warriors out there in the Western Division, just to, the Lakers, and they're my team. And so I just have this conflict because they're going to be undoubtedly helped by a person who I, in the past, have not cared very much for. So
you're conflicted.
There's my confliction today.
Yeah, the LeBron thing is interesting because I'm kind of neutral about LeBron. I if you were to press me as to what my feelings were about him one way or the other, I'd probably tell you that they run towards some of the things that you said. I'm not a big fan of team jumpers. And I'm not a big fan of team jumpers who then reach out and start to assemble like an all-star cast to go to one team. And that team kind of dominates, kind of like the Yankees did for a while there. What they tried to do, at least
in the Steinbrenner days.
Yeah. Right?
Mm-hmm.
When I think
they were pretty good at it, too.
Yeah, they were. They were. But when when the Yankees had their run starting in the mid-'90s, a lot of that was homegrown talent, too.
It was. Oh, sure.
A lot of players.
Derek Jeter came up through the minors in the Yankee system, sure.
But they did have the money to get any free agent that they wanted.
Yeah. It seemed like they would always go, they'd home grow most of them, and then I think they sort of invented that strategy of going out, we need one player, we need a power hitter, we need a center fielder. They would go out and get that player. Now, a lot of teams do that now. I think that's pretty standard now.
LeBron's salary, 4 years, $154 million.
That's a lot of money
on that contract.
That's a lot. What was that? That would make him what at per year?
38.5.
Does that now make him the highest paid American? Remember we were talking about this.
Yeah, I had that list.
Does that now make him number one? I think he was already number one, actually.
I would assume.
Of American athletes, there, as we noted a couple of weeks ago in the same conversation, we noticed that there are some soccer players from other countries that are like the top three, I think.
And speaking of soccer, Portugal and Spain have been knocked out. Two of the world's powers are out of the World Cup. Russia keeps winning and advancing. And
which surprises everybody, it seems.
And it's in Russia. Russia's the host country.
Sure.
And
they fixed it.
Exactly. I can't help but be suspicious that there's something going on.
Well, they're good at it. I mean, if they can fix elections in the U.S. and other countries, they can certainly fix a soccer tournament in their own country. That's what people are thinking. Well, there's not a shred of evidence to anything I just said, but that's what people think.
But we know now, after the Olympics that the Russians held, we know that they rigged the blood doping tests.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
They had literally had a hole in the wall that they exchanged out urine samples.
Yeah, and they don't really have elections over there, do they? I mean, they have an exercise in which citizens of Russia go to a place called a ballot box and they cast a vote for
Putin
next leader. But
they just don't have the turnout they had under the old communist era.
What's that old joke? That's about as surprising as a Russian election.
Yeah. During the communist era, I remember reading in my geography books and whatever when I was a kid, history books, Russian election turnout is like 99.73%.
Yeah, they're into it over there.
And the ones who don't turn out are the ones in Siberia.
Exactly.
Where the Poles
or hanging on a wall somewhere.
Right, something like that, right? Friday, I went home and I did something that maybe once or twice a year I do, and it was the greatest thing ever. Around 6 p.m., I was just tired. So I went upstairs and I just lie down on the bed, and at 9:30 I woke up. Like, wow, that was a serious.
And you thought it was breakfast time.
No,
you didn't know it was p.m. You thought it was a.m.
I didn't know it was nighttime.
I got to get to work. I'm late.
I have done that, but I went. I don't know. I think I was up for another half hour, an hour, and then I went right back to bed. Woke up the next morning around 6 something or 7.
12 hours of sleep.
Basically, yeah. I slept
That's
about 10 or so out of 12 hours. It was awesome.
I think I did like 9.5 Friday or Saturday night, which is awesome for me. I mean, I'm a 5 to 6 hour a night sleeper, real light sleeper too. And so when I crash like that, and all of a sudden I realize I got 8+ hours of sleep, it's like going on vacation.
27 years ago, I did the morning show at another radio station, and I used to set my alarm at 3:21 a.m. because we went on at 5:30, and I had such anxiety at missing the alarm clock that one Saturday when I didn't even have to work, and my wife at the time worked at Shady Grove Hospital, so she worked shift work as a pharmacist there. I actually woke up as she came home. It was midnight, and I woke up, and I took a shower, and I got dressed, and I went downstairs and was ready to leave as my wife was coming in, and she said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to work." She said, "It's Saturday at 1 a.m. Where are you going?"
Didn't I tell you, honey? I took on some extra work.
And I went, what?
I'm going in to do some promos.
I'm like, are you serious? She said, yeah. I was so disoriented because at that time, and I'm a night person. I'm not a morning person. I'm a night person. And at that time in my 20s, I was especially a night person. So I couldn't move my clock around to get to sleep at any kind of a decent hour. So, for instance, on Sunday night, I'd get to sleep at maybe 1 a.m. So I'd get about 2.5 hours of sleep for Monday morning, and then I'd get about 4 hours of sleep for Tuesday, and then Wednesday, by that time I'd exhaust myself and I'd sleep a massive amount of time Wednesday, and then restart the whole struggle over again on Thursday. So I was a walking zombie for 6 months, and I did that twice, where I got up the wrong time of day, thought it was a different time and a different day, and tried to go to work, but I was stopped by my wife before I did it.
The other night, Debbie was sleeping, had to get up in the middle of the night, and then she couldn't sleep, so I think she got up and read or something like that. And what that did, like at 2 a.m, it just screwed our dog. Our dog sleeps not with us, but in a bed next to us in the bedroom. His name is Jack. And Jack then woke me up because he's prancing around the floor, confused, like, why is Mom up? If she's up, then maybe I should be up. And then he wakes me up. Now I'm up. Well, half hour later, he's back in bed, sound asleep, and we can't go to sleep. Because dogs get themselves on a routine. You kind of envy them in a way. They live, with a very strict routine. Jack can tell time. He knows when it's 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Because that's when he gets fed.
I think a lot of dogs
do. Yeah, I think most dogs do. They know, they have an internal clock. They know when it's time to eat. They look at you around 10 minutes before it's time to eat. And it's like, come on, Dad, it's time to
And go pee.
Yeah. It's time to do that right now. I went kayaking yesterday with my son-in-law. It was very nice.
I noticed you still have your glasses this morning.
I do. And I told Ed that when I brought that up on the radio, the first thing Rob would say was, I noticed you have your glasses this morning. I know. I said, I predicted it. If Ed is listening, he's laughing right now.
All right, Eddie.
That's exactly what I
should have warned me, Ed. I'd have thrown him a curveball this morning.
Yeah, we went down the Back Creek and onto the Potomac, about, 2-hour paddle, as they say. Yeah, so it's very nice.
Good workout.
It's amazing how, and I guess everybody knows this, what a beautiful area we live in. But you don't really, unless you get out and hike somewhere or bike somewhere or kayak somewhere, you think that you have gotten in an airplane somewhere and flown off to, because the beauty is just the rock formations as they come down onto the water and the fast-running water. It's just absolutely a beautiful place that we live in. So I was reminded of that yesterday.
How was usually when it rains a lot and there's flooding, the water is kind of murky and brown?
It had been bad, but it was a lot better yesterday. It's getting better. It's not to the point yet where you think, oh, it's just so clean. It's not there yet, but it has. It's a lot better than it has been over the past few weeks. It's starting to clear out a little bit.
What did you see floating by a lot? Mostly what? Just logs and whatever, or what?
I didn't really see a lot of that at all.
No?
There wasn't a lot of debris sort of in the river. No, there wasn't. I didn't see anything like that at all. There were a few other paddlers out there. We saw some people fishing, families in a couple of areas, jumping into the water and cooling off. Of course, it was hot when we were out there. We were out there midday yesterday. So I suspect it had to be at mid to high 90s. When we were out there, on the water.
Did you take a rest at all? Did you get up on the banks a couple of times?
Couple of times we stopped and, got a refreshment out of the cooler that we had strapped to one of the kayaks. And Debbie had made us some sandwiches, so we had a little picnic along the way. Yeah, a couple of times we stopped.
Is it in terms of the flow of the river? You're going with the flow one way and then paddling against it the other way?
No, we put two pickups. My pickup in one one spot, and his pickup in another. So we go and park one, so that when we get out, we have one to come back to.
Smart.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that.
Experienced kayaker.
Exactly. I think a lot of people do that. So it's kind of a destination. It's more fun to do it that way, I think, than just going out and trying to either go back up river or to just paddle around in one location. It's nicer.
Do you ever?
The only problem is you got to drive, in some cases, a long distance to get to the end destination and then come back and repeat.
How many miles are we talking about?
Well,
difference between the pickup trucks?
30 miles.
So that's a lot of paddling then.
Yeah, it was about over 2 hours. But the road that we took, Ed devised this trip. It wasn't a very efficient trip. As a matter of fact, when we got to the end destination, I said, should I call Debbie and tell her we'll be home Tuesday? Because the driving distance to me indicated it was going to be a very, very long time. But the river path was not that long.
What is the most interesting thing you've seen over the years kayaking? Whether it's a bear, whatever. What's the most fascinating thing you've seen, or most scariest thing
I've
you've
not
seen?
done a lot. I mean, I'm not that experienced of a kayaker, so I can't give you a really in-depth, great story and an answer to that. But I will say it's common to see things along the way. I've never seen a bear, but sometimes deer staring you kind of close in the face, and you don't realize that they're right there if you pull up, things like that. But no, I really can't share with you any great stories. I've never done any category 3 kayaking like some of these people have. These athletes. It's an Olympic sport now, I think, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So no, we're just lazy
weekend kayakers.
Yeah.
They started tearing the woods down behind my house
Oh, that's sad.
this past week.
Yeah, that's sad.
And
I know you weren't looking forward to that.
Yeah, they're sparing about 100 or so feet, 100 couple feet, not much more than that, of trees. So when they started it on, I don't know if it was Thursday last week or Friday, whatever it was, I looked out, and from my house, it looked closer than where they were supposed to be. And I was ready to run out there and say, whoa, 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 you're too close. But as I walked out, it was a little bit deceptive. It's actually, as you walk out,
Did you
it's
step
the right
it
distance.
off to make sure it was 100 feet?
And I had neighbors do the same thing too.
Is that going to be a house now built behind you, or
There will
condos, or
there will be houses built behind us.
maybe
yes.
I'll buy that house right behind you, and we'll be neighbors.
You could,
Yeah,
but
okay.
you'd have to pay Maryland taxes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
There's the difference.
there is a big difference. Yeah,
yeah, there is.
big difference.
So they started that, and I thought they would be out there with chainsaws, because we have these are very mature trees back there.
Yeah,
But
kind of sad
instead,
to see them come down, isn't it?
it's horrible, actually.
Yeah.
They're actually just pushing them over. And I don't know if because we've had so much rain, the ground is soft, but I'm looking at mature trees.
They're not cutting them down with a saw. They're just like
Right.
roots and all, taking them out. Wow.
And I'm looking at this because I'm seeing like uprooted trees on their side. And the other day,
How do they do that?
I don't know because I haven't seen them do it. It's thick right now because everything's full. The leaves are out.
I mean, do they have a tree pushing machine? They must.
There must be something. I don't know. I'm not an experienced deforester.
Right.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I heard one the other day. I don't know if it was yesterday or Saturday. Fall, and it was a bad feeling. It was a bad sound.
Yeah.
Well, we bought the house. In fact, everybody along that tree line when we bought those houses paid premiums for those lots, so that you'd have
Well, sure you
woods
did.
behind your house.
Absolutely.
Right? You
yeah.
pay a premium
You paid
for
more for a lot that has that than you would have
Yes.
for a lot that did not have that.
And we were told that was preservation area, could not be developed.
Right.
So yeah, okay, sure. And then I don't know, a few years. I was there about 12, 13 years, and one of the planning, I get the county commission that was elected at that point received a petition to change the zoning from agricultural to mixed development use, and they approved it. And when they did that, that's when we all got a letter saying, "Hey, an exciting development is coming to your house," and none of us were very excited about this exciting development. So that's when we got together and said, "Hey, how many feet of trees can we actually save here? Because we kind of paid a premium for these lots based on these trees."
I think that Debbie and I are potentially in that same situation, and we wonder about that because where we live, we back up to a forest area that's really large.
Mm-hmm.
And we were told, and the development that we live in, it's a dozen or so houses that fit right kind of into this little alcove around where this property is. And everyone's been told, and where we live, that has been passed on by the original developers to Shepherd University. That's owned by Shepherd University as a preserve and will never be built on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what everyone's been told. We've lived there 13 years. Doesn't seem to be a problem. But have I ever seen a piece of paper that says that Shepherd cannot sell that land? Never have. I was only told that orally, verbally. So who knows? That in theory, at least, something like that could happen to us as well.
So
no, I hope not, but it could.
The irritating part for us, and development happens, and people need places to live. I get that, but we had gotten through the process that you go through. We met with county commissioners. We went to the hearings. We attended the hearings, signed petitions, whatever, and we were given a 125-foot buffer for the forest. And on top of that, there was a little 35-foot preservation area that was already in place that couldn't be touched. So we had about a 160-foot buffer. But then after the public hearing, a few months later, they went back in and the planning committee, unelected people, the planning commission changed it temporarily, giving a 35-foot easement of it to the developer so they could tear down another 35 feet of trees with the promise they would replant them later, which, how many of those are going to live? That was the irritating part. Is we went through the process with elected officials. We were told by elected officials this was the agreement, it can't be changed now. And then unelected officials changed it. And that's irritating to me because you have no repercussions.
Well, it doesn't sound to me like you had anywhere to take your case to at all. There was no higher court, if you will.
Correct. There's nothing you can do about that unless you want to file a suit and then have to pay all the fees that go along with that, which you cannot recover. So that was irritating to me because unelected people did something that the elected officials said couldn't be done.
Well, and even if you had hired an attorney, paid all the money, I'm going to guess that a lot of attorneys would have said you really don't have a legal standing here because no one broke the law. They gave that power to the planning commission.
And the planning commission exercised it. And in fact, we had trouble finding an attorney.
It's not right. It's not right that it works that way.
It was irritating.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't blame you for being irritated.
Hey, it's 8:31. Financial Phil is going to join us next. And in the 9 o'clock hour, Delegate Pat McGeehan, who represents the 1st Delegate District in the state of West Virginia, will join us. He had serious surgery not long ago, and he's actually back to work now. And we're going to join him. He's got a few things on his mind. We're going to check on how he's doing as well. Coming up, that's the 9 o'clock hour. It's 8:31.
CBS News Update. 2/3 of the country is still sizzling in an extreme heat wave.
This is a little extreme, but I'll take it over snow any day.
From New York, south to the Carolinas, north to Maine, and west through Illinois, dangerous temperatures and high humidity are in the forecast for today. Dr. Butch Humbert urging people to be aware of the warning signs of heat stroke.
Start to feel a little nauseous, kind of a little bit weak and almost dizzy, and those are really the warning signs that it's time to get out of the heat.
Meteorologist Patrick Burke at the National Weather Service Prediction Center.
Heat advisories and some excessive heat warnings for especially New York State, parts of New England, and then down through the mid-Atlantic, so that would include Philadelphia and on down to eastern Virginia and a little part of northeast North Carolina.
Many cities, including New York and Boston, have set up cooling stations. The heat index will make it feel like it's in the triple digits through July 4th. CBS News Update. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
Now your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. He said the court made the wrong call in giving him jail time for stabbing people. The appeals court didn't see it that way, so 31-year-old Ilan Belvene of Martinsburg will still have to do between 8 years and 4 decades behind bars. 4 years ago, he knifed 5 people during a bar fight, which took place when Belvene returned to the bar after he and his friends had been kicked out. All of the victims recovered. 7 years ago, Belvene was convicted of killing a man during a robbery gone wrong. A heads up for hunters in Berkeley County. From now on, any and all deer carcasses will have to stay within the county. The reason? Chronic wasting disease, which was recently found in 2 road-killed deer. A heads up from the West Virginia Division of Highways about nighttime lane closures on Interstate 81 in the Martinsburg area beginning this Friday. Work will take place between mileposts 12 and 21 between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. 7 days a week. Traffic will be reduced to 2 lanes. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
Sunny, hot, and humid weather all the way into and through the 4th of July holiday. We're looking at a high near 95 degrees here this afternoon. A heat advisory in effect from noon until 8 p.m. for the eastern panhandle. We'll see the heat index, that heat-humidity combination, what it feels like outside, could rise to about 103 degrees during the peak of the afternoon. An isolated shower possible this evening. Most places dry, otherwise partly cloudy, and a low right around 70 first thing tomorrow morning. Same story tomorrow. 95 75 the high, mostly sunny, that isolated late-day thundershower. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio, WRNR.
The Honda 4th of July sales event is back, and you could get a brilliant deal on our most popular vehicles, like the Civic, Fit, and Pilot. It's a reason to celebrate across the country. From the Liberty Bell to Hollywood, Cape Cod, Atlantic City, the Grand Canyon, the Mojave Desert, the Golden Gate Bridge, and even back up to Niagara Falls. Although technically we share it with Canada. So come discover the 2018 KBB.com Best Overall Brand during the Honda 4th of July sales event. Hurry into your local Honda dealer today.
Miller Honda, south of Winchester, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. www.mymillerhonda.com.
Based on 2018 Brand Image Awards from Kelley Blue Book. Visit kbb.com for more information.
Hello, this is Delegate Mike Folk, candidate for West Virginia Senate District 16. I want to extend my personal congratulations to all the Little League All-Stars this summer. As a former three-sport athlete and Shepherd football player, I understand the importance of discipline, hard work, and perseverance, something our All-Stars have in common. As you continue your journey through this summer and your life, remember this quote from Hall of Famer Jerry Rice, who said, "Today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can accomplish what others can't." Best of luck and have a great tournament.
For an Allstate agent, providing protection that fits your life is something they take, well, personally. Allstate agents are committed to learning about your needs and personalizing protection to meet them. From bundling your auto, home, and life insurance with ease to evaluating optional coverage based on your protection needs, your Allstate agent can build an insurance proposal that fits your life. Are you in good hands? Contact Martinsburg Allstate agent Gary Kelly today for a free quote at 304-263-4596. Life insurance offered through Allstate Life Insurance Company and Allstate Assurance Company, Northbrook, Illinois, and American Heritage Life Insurance Company, Jacksonville, Florida.
You've been injured, you're missing work, the medical bill collectors keep calling, and the other person's insurance company wants a lot of confusing paperwork signed and returned. At Ferretti Law Office, we handle these situations to protect your rights and get you the compensation you deserve. We explain how the insurance coverages work for your benefit and what a lawyer like me can do to make a difference. Call Ferretti Law Office at 264-8505 to schedule an appointment to discuss your situation for free. At Ferretti Law Office, we're here to help.
This segment of our show brought to you this morning by L.A. Roberts Jewelers, committed to excellence in quality design and craftsmanship at historic downtown Martinsburg. Rob here along with David Welch. Wednesday is the 4th of July. Happy birthday, America. We'll be out that day.
Yeah, one of those holidays that you really, you talk about moving holidays, as so many of them have been moved, Labor Day, Memorial Day, and others, to the Monday so as to make it a 3-day weekend. But you really can't do that with the 4th of July, can you?
It's a Christmas day.
You just can't do it. I mean, I guess it's Christmas, the 25th of December, and Independence Day, July 4th, are the two that you just really can't.
And New Year's Day.
Move. Can't move New Year's Day. Good point.
Can't move New Year's Day.
Yeah. So they're embedded.
Why do you suppose we get New Year's Day off?
I don't know. I mean, if I had it my way, I wouldn't have I would not make New Year's Day a holiday. I would find another place to have a holiday, kind of in one of those times of the year when we go for a long time without one, and make that a holiday.
I think it's kind of fascinating. It's the first day of the year. You know what? Let's give everybody a day off. How did that come about?
It's so European, isn't it? Let's take the whole week off.
You know what? If you take the first day of the year off, we should take the midpoint of the year off too. I get maybe you have July 4th is kind of the midpoint of the year.
Yeah, that is. It's 4 days away from the mid-year. I like some of those. Aren't there some, I don't know this for a fact, but I think there are some European countries that sort of take the whole month of August off or something.
Gotta move there, baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like everyone that's it. We're just going to close everything down except for essential grocery stores, I guess. People still have to eat. But everyone just takes the month off.
I want to live somewhere where you just shut everything down around 2 and you take a power nap for a couple hours.
Mexico.
2 to 4.
That's what they do in
or
Mexico.
1 to 3.
You ever heard of a siesta?
Yes.
That's what they do. They take a little siesta.
I want to go have a big lunch.
Spain. I think it's actually Spain that really does that.
Big lunch and then a nap.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, you know, what they do, though, in those cultures, I think, is they take their siesta and then they go back to work until like 8 or 9 at night.
I don't want to do that. I want to take my
nap.
nap.
I know. That's why I mentioned it, because I knew where you were going.
And I want a pension for life after that.
Well, you know, you're rich enough to retire. You just do this job for fun.
Retire at 60, pension for life kind of deal.
There you go. Well, yeah. I mean, that's gotten some countries into trouble guaranteeing that for their people.
I didn't say it wouldn't get people in trouble paying for it. I just said this is what I want.
Well, I mean, we were having a conversation yesterday at home with my federal employee son-in-law, and you have a federal employee, obviously, your wife and your family.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the point that, you know, back in the old days, if you will, the years we were growing up, and our parents worked for companies, so often there was a pension that came with that.
Oh, my father had a pension.
Sure. And so that was pretty much the norm. It's not the norm anymore.
No.
And really the only ones that work anymore and still have, I mean, I'm sure this is not 100%. There are companies that still have pensions.
Very few.
Very few. But for the most part, I would encourage all younger people, go work for a state or federal government. That's the place to work these days. It's almost impossible to get fired. You pretty much have automatic advancements. Seniority counts for a lot in state and probably local government as well. You know, it's a very secure job. They're well paid, and you get a pension. It's the place to work now. Why do you think Maryland and Virginia and the suburbs around Maryland and Virginia are among the richest cities and counties in the country? Because they have a stable workforce of well-paid people in those areas that support a healthy economy, and it's federal government supported. I'm not saying that's bad, because I've never met a federal employee that I would accuse of being lazy or not hardworking or not being completely dedicated to their job. I'm just suggesting that they do have a really good deal when in comparison to those in the private sector.
Sure.
And it didn't used to be that way. The theory was when it all, you know, they started building up state and federal government, was that they were going to be paid less. You were going to accept less pay for more security, less pay than you would probably make in the private sector. That's now turned upside down. There's more pay and more security, for the most part, in government jobs.
There's better pay than there used to be, but if you read and I get all this information, if you read the studies, federal employees, at least I get the federal information, federal employees make less than their private sector counterparts. Doesn't mean they don't get paid well. It just means, according to their reports, they get paid less than if they were to do the same job in the private sector. Whether that's true or not is another story. I don't know. I haven't gone into these reports and studies and torn them apart to see if they're accurate or not, but that's what they're reporting.
Well, another thing, too, is that I would argue that they're far more secure when we go through recessionary times where you might have layoffs at some company XYZ. You know, I have a client that I have worked for 8 years that just laid off 10% of their workforce. You don't see that in government.
You don't often see that.
It's kind of a recession-proof situation, so they're far more secure.
To the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line, we travel. Financial Phil is there. Philly, good morning.
Happy Monday, guys. How are you?
Phil, we were just discussing the long-term security of David Welch's financial life here, and David doesn't have a pension, so he had better be investing in a 401k or some type of IRA in order to take care of his older age.
Well, it sounds to me like Dave needs to see a financial planner in the near future. I don't know if he's done that yet or not.
Is Financial Phil a financial planner?
John is a CFP. Financial Phil is a financial advisor.
Advisor. What's the difference between an advisor and a planner?
Just another designation. There's a designation I actually have been working on, but the busier we get, the harder it gets, is a certified financial planner. It's just an exam you sit and study for. It doesn't really allow for any other, it doesn't allow for any other abilities than what I've already got. It's just a designation at the end of your name, but it does carry some weight. So I'm working on that, but children and work schedule and volleyball and everything else tends to get in the way of it.
You know, Phil, I looked up on my little iPhone here, trivia questions, funtrivia.com. These are questions about the stock market. So I'm going to ask you if you know the answer to the first question.
Let's score these at home here, right?
You're going to make me look bad, Dave.
No, what has the question is, since 1929, what has been the average percentage return of the stock market?
The average, I'm taking a wild guess. This is just a wild guess. The average percentage return of the stock market, I would say, is about 8.5%.
Well, you're very close. It's 10%.
I would have guessed 10.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rob. I didn't know you were in the contest.
That's all right.
Okay, so
Sure, he would have guessed 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know. So that was the first one. Let's see. Was this other one right here was how many stocks make up the Dow Jones Industrial Average?
Go ahead, Phil.
Sake. Was it the Dow Jones is 100, isn't it?
I'd say 30.
Rob,
the big Dow Jones is a 30. Yes, the 100 is yes.
You're both right. It's both 30. The Dow Jones, the DIJA, is a general barometer of market movement up or down. However, because it only includes 30 blue chip stocks,
yes.
A broader sampling can be found in the Standard & Poor's 500 index or the Russell 2000.
We're a bigger fan of tracking S&P. It's a broader index, but it's not as popular for some reason. I guess it's because it has a smaller number to it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem as extreme. So when you talk about gains or losses, it seems more to talk about points as far as the Dow's concerned than the S&P. But we tend to follow and pay closer attention and measure progress in relationship to the S&P.
I wonder how many people, if you remember those old Jay Leno jaywalking segments, how many people would get the answer to the question, how many stocks are in the S&P 500 index?
Almost nobody.
Hey, this is a great...
I think you're right.
There's a great question.
Dave, you're killing me.
No, you're going to get this, Phil. I tell you, you're going to get this. What was the Sarbanes-Oxley Act named after?
Philip McCoy. I have no idea.
Sarbanes and Oxley.
Sarbanes and Oxley, yeah.
How many people are dead in that graveyard? Exactly. All of them, right. Yeah. Financial Phil is our guest here on the program at 8:45, and this is Tariff Monday here, Phil. I guess yesterday a bunch of tariffs kicked in on trade with other nations as they are retaliating against Trump tariffs, which kind of fascinates me. I thought the Trump tariffs was all about retaliation against countries that were already hitting us with tariffs, and we weren't putting tariffs on them. So this was our way of getting to an even playing field, and instead they're responding with tariffs, which now puts us back behind the 8 ball on tariffs again. Am I misunderstanding this, Phil?
No, you're not. And you know these tariffs that were on us in the past, I guess, have become accepted, and now that we try to mimic those same things, they want to retaliate back. So I guess after a certain point, and John's out of town, so he may not be listening, but here's a good example. A few times we closed the doors at 4 o'clock on a Friday. Next thing you know, we close the door every Friday at 4 o'clock. It's become the accepted norm. So if he said, hey, we're going to work until 5 o'clock, I would take it as we're working late. So that's the same thing with these tariffs. They had gone on for so long against us. They had gone on for so long, and they had been accepted, I guess, because of the strength of our economy, that now that we want to do some type of retaliation, that they're going to fire back. At the end of the day, and I actually I don't find the fact that our markets are down some today, but I find the fact that the Asian markets are struggling some as a positive in this, for us anyway, in this tariff war or trade war, whatever we want to call it. And plus, we have some payroll reports coming out Friday, and I think those payroll reports may, that's a play on words, but trump whatever happens this week as far as the tariffs are concerned. If our economy, and it is, and it's easy to say, hard to follow, and hard to be upbeat because we've got all these things swirling, which we always do, but the tariffs are legitimate, and they're a legitimate short-term concern. How long will they last is the question, but with our economy the way it is right now, if we're going to do something like this, now is the time. Our economy is strong. We're hitting the inflation numbers that we've been trying to hit for a decade. And I think our payroll reports, the expectation from our payroll reports or non-farm payroll is going to support that. And at the end of the day, stock markets always follow company earnings. Now, the fear is with these tariffs, what's going to happen to our company earnings? You hear Harley-Davidson's going to move some out. There was a lot of talk about that, by the way. You brought that up last week, and I heard about it all week.
Mm-hmm.
But Harley-Davidson moving some production overseas, and you could land on either side of the fence of how you feel about that. At the end of the day, companies have to make money, which is why they were out of the country to begin with the corporate tax rates before they went back. So I think Friday is really important. If we show that we're strong, right now our dollar is too strong because of what Asia has done yet again, or China has done yet again with devaluing their currency last week. That's what hurt us at the beginning of last week. We talked about that. It wasn't so much the tariffs as our dollar was too strong. But if our economy keeps moving on in the right direction, and we'll get a good indication of that this upcoming Friday, I think it's a good step toward us winning this trade war. And that's been someone else says, mercy first.
Tell us what happens this Friday, Phil.
It's non-farm payroll reports. So that's a good indication of the health of the economy. It's a good indication of where we're going with our workforce, what our unemployment rates. I think also in there is the average income or the average wage. What direction is that going in? So if all these reports stay strong, our employment rates are either flat, I don't even think they have to improve because they're at a good level right now, and our average income trickles up some, that's a good indication our economy is doing well. And if that's the case, well, hey, look, we're doing better than these people we're fighting, and that's ultimately who's going to give first is based off their own economy and what is needed from these other countries.
Chinese markets, Japanese markets, and South Korean markets all closed down with losses of 2% or more this morning. None of our markets are down even 1% at this point, but they are all down. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said on CNBC this morning that there's no level on the downside in the stock market that would change the way President Donald Trump approaches trade. So according to Ross, he's not going to feel pressure if the U.S. markets tank to change any of his international trade stances regarding tariffs.
I think once you start something like he started with these tariffs, if you give in, it's a true sign of weakness. So I don't think, regardless of what our markets do, I would agree, just knowing the rhetoric that's come from Donald Trump in the past, I would agree that he's not going to change anything. He's not going to give in. He is not going to give in. He's like my mother on that aspect. If he digs his heels in, he's not going to give in. But if with our stronger economy than what we're up against, then I think that the other countries are bound to give in first. And I think that's a good sign. Even though it's kind of dragging us down this morning, and even though our 401ks and our Roths and our IRAs and our non-qualified accounts may be experiencing some pain all around the board, there's really no equity sector, I don't think, anyway, right now that's kind of safe unless you have an individual stock in something that's kind of taken off. Nothing seems to be safe from this. Even the small caps have, which in some cases doesn't make any sense. We think of a small cap company. Those small cap companies, what we're talking about is their size, and a lot of times these companies are regional. Well, if they're regional, other than internet-based companies, if they're regional companies, take a Sheetz, for example, who's not public, but they're a regional company. If they were, they would be a small cap company. Well, how does China really impact their sales? It doesn't really, but companies like that are all dropping across the board, and sometimes it's overreaching fear, and it's understandable. We're still at high point. So if you look at a chart, S&P 500 chart, we're still at a high point, and that's where fear starts to seep in, even if there's not major things like these tariffs going on. So it does make sense that we're seeing somewhat of a sell-off this morning. How the day ends is, what information comes so fast and so quickly, and you could see no light at the end of the tunnel. Next thing you know, at noon, before lunch is over, our markets are back up 1% or 1.5%, especially under Trump, based off of some deal that's been made or rhetoric that there may be a deal made.
Phil, I think it was on Friday, maybe over the weekend, there was an article that I picked up on, probably because I use Dell products for a lot of the work that we do, but that they might go public. And I'm interested in when a company that well-known, a brand company like that, goes public, is that generally a good time to buy that company's stock when that happens?
It's volatile. and that price that is set when it first goes public. I think back to Facebook, which was one, I think, the largest IPOs or the most publicized IPOs, at least in my tenure. Facebook and Alibaba from a few years ago. But, it started off at 27, 28, 29. It hit the market and it jumped a few percent immediately, and then it dropped like a rock. But since then, it has done nothing but good. But how it finds its way, it's difficult to tell. A lot of people do like to invest in the IPOs, like to get in what they would say on the ground floor, but sometimes those are also overpriced. So it's difficult to look at a company, especially the first time they go public, and say, hey, I'm jumping on board with this. And at what point do you say, okay, now I'm interested in the company, but I want to buy it? When do you do that? When exactly do you do that? We stayed. I remember I was at Merrill Lynch at the time, and we stayed away from Facebook like it had the plague because we didn't know where it was going to go. We just had no idea where it was going to go. And when you're a fiduciary for someone else, it's the last thing you want to do is put your money, a lot of money, into something where you just simply don't know where it's going to go. I can say that I had a few Facebook clients that we never saw again, and they had stock in Facebook. It was kind of cool because that they had somewhat hit the jackpot, but we never saw them again, and it's hard to tell where they went. But,
what makes the Dell story different than the Facebook story that I find interesting is that Dell is such a branded, well-known company with hundreds of thousands of people who own their products. So when a really well-known company like that goes public, I would imagine there would be a rush to get in on the IPO. I would think. I don't know.
I used to own Dell when it was public.
Yeah, because it went private. Like 5 years? It was public.
Michael Dell took them private.
Right.
Well, and you wonder what's coming as well, because they're clearly trying to raise capital for something. And what's that capital
point.
for? Yeah. And that's also a big part of it as well. What's the capital for? Why do they need the capital? And that's a huge part of it. Do they have some sort of technology? Is there some sort of phone that they're bringing to the market? Is there another type of computer or a laptop or whatever it may be that they're bringing to the market that we may not yet know? I always look at, and my wife and I were looking at this yesterday, but we live in the diabetes community, and there's always a race for these companies to have FDA approval on their technology, and it's pretty much the same technology, but who's going to get it approved first? And you can start to see with mutual fund companies buying them and how they shoot up in price, and oftentimes by the time you hear about it, we always say this, by the time you hear about it, it's way too late because it's not public news. Now, Dell may be something that you would see on the nightly news, and they're coming out with this or they're coming out with that if you're in the technology field, but that's a huge part of it. Why are they going public?
What are your thoughts on Amazon getting into the drug delivery business, Phil?
You know what? It seems like everything Amazon touches turns to gold. They're into groceries. We've talked about them getting into the pharmaceuticals for quite some time. We've talked about them being their own shipping arm, and the worries that I personally had for some of UPS and FedEx and DHL and some of the others when Trump was tweeting out the unfair shipping prices that Amazon was receiving. They were receiving a bigger benefit than everyone else, and I was nervous because I said, hey, I don't know if I'd mess with Amazon from that. They can do that on their own if they want. So they tend to, everything they touch, they tend to sell. So I would find it to be positive.
The reason I asked that is that I was listening to an interview on Fox News TV, I think it was, this morning at home, and they were interviewing a doctor who had some real reservations about Amazon getting into this line of business because there might be out there a lot of potential customers who might say, I really don't want to give Amazon all my medical data. Not that they, would do necessarily anything with it, but they just don't want to give that to what it amounts to a marketing company. So that this is going to be tricky for Amazon to make this work. But you're right, everything they touch seems to turn to gold.
And I've seen this with my father, who's now in a care facility, and his pharmaceuticals have changed. But for over the last years, he had to get his through his union pension plan in order to receive a better rate through the insurance company. He had to get those through CVS online or via mail, so he could either do it by phone or I could do it by phone or online. And now the home, of course, they don't do that. But does Amazon have the sheer force to get with an insurance company? That may be where it's a marketing thing where you're not choosing. I don't choose, and my wife doesn't choose where we get our medication. We're kind of told where we're going to get our medication based off the price that we're going to pay. So I don't know that patients do choose where they get their pharmaceuticals. I think they're told by their insurance companies. So that's where the marketing for Amazon would be in play, is through the insurance companies.
Phil, final minute here. Real quick, how closely have you and your family been watching the PEIA hearings and the task force solutions?
I could tell you that my wife, especially after what she went through this weekend, because it's the same old frustrations, maybe multiplied. She's got her ear to that, probably like I have my ear to the Pittsburgh Steelers. If there's anything that comes out to PEIA, she is all over. She's even met with some people and told them some of the struggles that we've had with getting coverage for a teenager, a child that's got an autoimmune disease that we can't get adequate coverage for, which is it blows our mind. We pay out of state for her supplies because we have to order them. We have no choice. We have to order those. She has to order those from a out-of-state company. So therefore, we pay out-of-state rates, out-of-network. And it's just little things like that. It's just a jab here and a jab there and a pill this and a pill that. And it's just it seems to be a full-time job,
Bill,
just to keep up with that.
Appreciate the update. I am out of time. Have a great day.
You guys have a great week.
9 o'clock. This is Talk Radio WRNR Martinsburg. The news is next.
You should never count. This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by TheraWorks Relief.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. A new signal: President Trump's one-time lawyer may be ready to open up to federal prosecutors. Correspondent Stephen Portnoy has details from Washington.
The president's former personal attorney and fixer, who once vowed to take a bullet for Donald Trump, tells ABC his wife, daughter, and son have his first loyalty. After the FBI raided Michael Cohen's home, office, and hotel room earlier this year, the president said he doesn't see Cohen flipping. Cohen, who paid porn star Stormy Daniels to keep her silent and was later reimbursed by Mr. Trump, says he's not a villain and that he hopes to regain his name, reputation, and life.
Federal officials in Cleveland say they've arrested a 48-year-old man who'd been planning a terror attack on July 4th. CBS News investigative reporter Pat Milton.
The man allegedly believed he was planning the attack with al-Qaeda associates, but instead he was dealing with someone working undercover for the FBI.
CBS News has learned the suspect allegedly discussed a plan to attack Philadelphia at a later date. High heat and humidity are teaming up for another oppressive day across much of the country. WBZ meteorologist Danielle Niles.
2/3 of the country under this dome of high pressure for several days in a row, so the heat relentless here. The heat index forecasts well into the 90s to low 100s, all the way from the Northeast, stretching back down through D.C., Philly, Raleigh, extending into the Midwest.
The extreme heat expected to last through the 4th of July. With few Republican votes to spare, President Trump is zeroing in on a replacement for retiring Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. CBS's Nancy Cordes.
CBS News has learned that D.C. Circuit Court Judge Brett Kavanaugh and Chicago Circuit Court Judge Amy Coney Barrett are currently the leading contenders for an appointment to the High Court. But the president has also mentioned that he's going to consider more than just a handful of potential nominees.
The issue of abortion rights could alienate moderate members of the GOP. The president says he'll announce his decision a week from today. In Mexico City, Andrés Manuel López Obrador thanking his supporters who pushed him to victory in Mexico's presidential election. The left-wing populist campaigned on a promise of weeding out drug violence and tackling the country's massive poverty problem. Lakers fans rolling out the red carpet for King James.
What an emotional day here, because even though we know that this is Kobe's house, we know that LeBron James, welcome, baby.
The four-time NBA MVP is leaving Cleveland for Los Angeles. He's agreed to a 4-year contract worth $154 million. S&P futures down 16. This is CBS News.
To prevent and relieve muscle cramps in your legs and feet, use TheraWorks Relief. Get TheraWorks Relief today at select Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid pharmacies or TheraWorksRelief.com. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter posts your job to over 100 job boards with just one click, and then their smart matching technology finds the right candidates. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. To prevent muscle cramps in your legs and feet, use TheraWorks Relief. This fast-acting foam is clinically proven to relieve leg and foot cramps. Get TheraWorks Relief today at select Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid pharmacies or TheraWorksRelief.com. Ask your pharmacist for a TheraWorks Relief.
Hey, Dave, you in for golf this weekend?
I can't. I promised I'd find a plumber to fix a sink and a painter to paint the...
Just use Angie's List.
Doesn't that cost money?
Not at all. It's free to find pros in your area who can do the work. You can even read ratings and reviews from other customers.
What about roofing pros?
Angie's List has pros for everything. And to save time, they'll even match you to the best pros for the job.
Oh, that's awesome. Looks like I'll be able to play after all.
Find the best pros for your next project at
Now your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. A former police officer with the Berkeley County Sheriff's Department will be getting about $18,000. The Herald Mail reports Noelle Spickler made a complaint that she was discriminated against because of her gender, and late last week the county council agreed to settle. Spickler made that complaint in January of last year and resigned from the department last August. 1 month later, the state's Human Rights Commission found there was merit to the claim that the Human Rights Act had been violated in the case. Hundreds of West Virginians just got checks in their mailboxes that they might not have known they had coming. More than $1 million in unclaimed life insurance payments have been returned by the state treasurer's office this year alone. A reminder from Police Chief Maury Richards about Martinsburg's fireworks rules. They can be sold but not set off within city limits. And anyone caught setting them off within city limits faces a fine of up to $500 and up to 30 days in jail, too. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
Sunny, hot, and humid weather all the way into and through the 4th of July holiday. We're looking at a high near 95 degrees here this afternoon. A heat advisory in effect from noon until 8 p.m. for the eastern panhandle. We'll see the heat index, that heat-humidity combination, what it feels like outside, could rise to about 103 degrees during the peak of the afternoon. An isolated shower possible this evening. Most places dry, otherwise partly cloudy, and a low right around 70 first thing tomorrow morning. Same story tomorrow. 95 the high, mostly sunny, that isolated late-day thundershower. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio, WRNR.
I'm Joe Ferretti of Ferretti Law Office. The most common question I hear from people injured in an automobile wreck or because someone else was at fault is, can their insurance company do that? If you call Ferretti Law Office at 264-8505, I will answer that question and other questions you have for free. Get educated and get ready to fight back. Call 264-8505 to protect your rights and get the compensation you deserve. Put my 31 years of personal injury and trial experience to work for you. At Ferretti Law Office, we're here to help.
As Asanovich goes to second with a 2 RBI double, and Martinsburg is on the board first.
This is West Virginia State Delegate and former Little League All-Star Jason Barrett. I can still remember those summer days, the fun of playing baseball, building friendships, and learning lessons that are still with me today as I serve the people of the 61st District. I'm proud to support this year's All-Stars and wish the best to each team.
61st District Delegate Jason Barrett. Trusted leadership, real solutions.
For the last 34 years, the Martinsburg Bulldogs have been heard on Talk Radio WRNR.
Leaping into the air, Chilo Teneval has it. Is he in the end zone? Yes, he is. It's a Martinsburg Bulldog touchdown just inside the pylon and keeping his feet in bounds on the far sideline. Teneval pulls it in.
Join Matt Miller, Vic Holmes, and Jason Colrick for all the 2018 football action on your home for Martinsburg football. Talk Radio WRNR, the Panhandle Sports radio station.
Welcome back to the program, Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave. Shortened Monday edition. The Monday show isn't shortened, but the week is. We're out of here on Wednesday.
Your week is.
Well, all of ours, because Wednesday's the 4th. That's a station holiday. We're off that day. I'll be taking off Thursday and Friday, going down into the basement to recharge the batteries, my mid-year recharge. And D-Dub will be here along with Matt Miller and others as well, too. This segment of the show brought to you by Miller Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Route 9 east of Martinsburg, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. Dave, you have any special plans for Thursday and Friday? A little party in the studio while I'm out of here? You'd be.
No, I would
fidget
tell you
spinning?
though, you should never announce you're not going to be in. You know, you just don't. I think it's just best you not show up.
Just not show up
and
is
not make a big deal of it, because people might say, "Oh, well, Rob's not going to be. I'm not going to listen today."
Well, that's true. I mean, that would happen. I could
sure.
see droves of
in
people.
a way, you kind of set me up
for failure.
You do, and no, we'll be fine. I think we probably will maybe get something to eat. You know, while you're gone. Since I'm allowed to eat when you're not here.
My thought process on this was, with me out, when I come back on Monday, there will be a fidget spinner over there. There'll be a Nerf football.
The
woodpecker.
The woodpecker will probably be over on my side. Oh, yeah.
Food, leftovers, and one of those electronic football games, the magnetic guys.
Sure,
right?
Guaranteed. I think I'm going to do all that.
Did you have one of those games when you were a kid?
Yes.
The guys that sit on the they vibrate, move around?
Yeah.
Could you ever get it to work
No,
well?
never worked well.
I always wound up with, you could do the running play where you set the guy's wheel at the bottom and he could run a sweep, but then you got to stop the game and straighten him out. In the meantime, there'd be 4 guys off in a corner kind of dancing with each other. And at the other end of the end zone, there'd be a pile of about 6. Then there'd just be a couple bunches in the middle where people fell over.
A while back, not too long ago, I happened to be in some pub somewhere, and there were a couple of foosball games set up and guys playing them ferociously, just like in college.
Were you any good at that?
No, I never was good at that.
Terrible.
I was terrible. But I always admired people who had a certain skill in that, and some people were totally addicted to it in the same way people are addicted to electronic games now, video games now. And it was quite amazing to watch them. I remember in college especially, but it hasn't gone away. It's kind of refreshing to see a low-tech game out there that people still really enjoy.
Oh, you find me one of those bubble boy hockey games. You know what I'm talking about? The ice hockey with 6 controls for each guy and the big bubbles so the puck can fly out.
Yeah.
I was okay, but it was fun to play.
Or the air hockey. That was kind of fun.
Air hockey was fun.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, some of those old-fashioned games are still around and people still enjoying them. And there's like I say, the skill level it's pretty cool.
This segment of the show brought to you by Memory Lane. This also by Miller Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Route 9 east of Martinsburg, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. The first delegate district representative in the state of West Virginia is Pat McGeehan, and he joins us right now on the WVU Medicine Jefferson Medical Center talk line. Pat, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, good morning to you guys. Pleasure being on here again.
And Pat, geographically, for our listeners' sake, the first district, I think, is that tip of the northern panhandle, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. I live in the town of Chester, so that's the very northernmost town in the whole state of West Virginia. So we're actually kind of slightly north by latitude of Pittsburgh. So
it's on the Ohio River, isn't it?
Yeah, the Ohio, River Valley. And, Hancock County and the very northern part of Brooke County is my district, the first delegate district. And the northern panhandle is what I represent. And then there's a couple other districts south of me in the northern panhandle that encompass, that area.
I know that area because to some degree, because many times when I had my houseboat, which was docked on the Beaver River in Beaver, PA, off the Ohio River, we took many trips through that area where West Virginia was on one side and Ohio was on the other side.
Oh, yeah, Beaver. That's right.
Yeah, so it's my wife's hometown, which when you think of Chester to Beaver is how many miles driving-wise? It's not very far away.
Well, my little girl goes to gymnastics at a gym right outside Beaver, and it's about a 45-minute drive.
Yeah, not too far away.
Maybe less than that.
There you go.
Yeah.
That gym might be in Rochester.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, Rochester, Aliquippa.
I know right where the building
Monaca,
is.
Beaver Falls. They're all pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some good high school football out that way, too.
Oh, yeah. Some of the greatest NFL quarterbacks came from Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, man.
Which is, basically my neck of the woods right across the border. So
my 29-year-old nephew was a really good starting quarterback sophomore, junior, and senior year at Rochester High School.
Hard to believe he's 29 now.
He's 29 years old. And get this, he's chairman of the Beaver County Commission.
He's got that political in him, isn't he?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, and and last week he texts me this is a great story. It's because it's kind of about me, but he sent me a text and he says, I'm going to be meeting Vice President Pence today at a reception. What do you want me to tell him? I said, oh, just tell him hello for me. So he texts me afterwards. He goes, hey, Vice President Pence said to tell you hello. He goes, but what was really cool is that his wife Karen asked how you were doing too. So I thought was kind of nice.
Yeah, if you're just tuning in and you didn't know it, David ran Mike Pence's campaign years ago.
Oh, wow.
Pretty cool.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Welch is big time, man, let me tell you. Gingrich, Pence, Kasich.
Well, you see, East Liverpool, Ohio is right across the river from Chester, West Virginia, and that's Lou Holtz's hometown. So,
nice.
So he comes back every year and hosts a dinner, and they have a Lou Holtz Hall of Fame, and my little girl Kennedy was just inducted into his Hall of Fame.
Congrats.
This summer. So that was kind of neat.
Lou Holtz has one of the great lines ever. If you've ever seen his speech that went around the internet a few months back, and he said, don't tell people your problems. 90% of people don't care about them, and the other 10% are glad you've got them.
Oh, it's on. You can Google it. It is the best commencement address ever given. It's absolutely fabulous. And you probably can look across the river there and see a boat dock over there in East Liverpool, a marina, and that's where I would dry dock my houseboat every winter. So there you go.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly where that marina is. Yeah.
Pat, you were laid up for quite some time with a pretty serious heart surgery that you had done after our legislative session ended. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you're doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really good now. I started getting some pretty bad symptoms about 3.5 years ago. I was always a decent athlete, prolific runner, and always wanted to stay in shape, but I started getting some bad symptoms on my morning runs or morning jogs. I usually run between 2 and 4 miles a morning up until a few years ago, and then I started getting some symptoms like a heavy weight on my chest, shortness of breath, tunnel vision, and I called them episodes, and they usually pass after about a minute, and they'd happen right when I'd start running in the morning. And but they'd pass, I'd have to squat down, touch the ground, get my balance, and then they'd pass, and then I could finish a couple miles. But they progressively got worse and worse until the point where really I wasn't even able to walk upstairs without having those same symptoms hit me immediately, and they were proportionally a lot worse in magnitude. And I actually sort of passed out. Well, I did pass out at my day job at work once back in 2016, briefly, and because of the problem, and it's called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. I had the obstructive version. Most people that have this condition, it just means it's hereditary. It's a genetic condition. It causes the heart tissue and heart muscle with a gene you carry to thicken and enlarge. It's an enlarged heart, basically, and sometimes it can. It will never affect your life, but for me, I had the symptomatic obstructive kind, and the tissue had thickened, and they think it developed in my mid-30s. I'm 38 now, so they think it developed around 34 or 35, which is kind of rare. Usually develops earlier in life. And most of the time males have this. I never had it in the military. I had plenty of tests, echocardiograms, always in perfect health. Was on the triathlon team, boxing in college. Never any problem until about my mid-30s. And nobody could figure it out. I went to the VA in Pittsburgh. They gave me a clean bill of health, several other places. And Cleveland Clinic, I can't say enough good things about them. You ever need heart work, go to the Cleveland Clinic. It was wonderful. They diagnosed me, and they eventually said, hey, you need surgery. So on May 18th, I went in, and they cut me open, and had to shave part of my heart tissue off that was causing the obstruction. because the obstruction was basically preventing blood flow from getting out of the left ventricle to the rest of my body, like my brain and everything. And I just wasn't able to physically exert myself, and it was causing a lot of fatigue too. It was pretty miserable, but I adjusted. But anyway, it cured the symptoms. I'll still carry the gene, and the condition, but they say, I'll be back to getting back to my old self. My sternum, chest bone, is still technically broken, but it's almost healed. And I spent 3 or 4 days at the Cleveland Clinic, and they let me go. And I had some pretty good-looking nurses there too that kept me in good mood. So anyway,
you're not supposed to say that on a radio show. Come on.
It's okay. I give you a pass.
Truth. But long story short, I appreciate you guys asking me, and hopefully, everything continues to go well. So
glad to hear that everything has worked out. Pat, is there any concern that your children have inherited that gene? Is there a way to get tested?
Yeah, I've had my little girl. I've got one child. My little girl's 13, Kennedy, and I've already had her screened, and she doesn't have it. So we'll have to keep an eye on her and have her screened with an echocardiogram. Once every 5 years they suggest, and just to make sure. But right now, so good.
That's good. I'm glad everything has worked out for you, and that you're back in the middle of things now. And it's a busy time to be in the middle of things too. Pat McGeehan, our guest here on the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line. This state is in the middle of several different crises. Anything from flood relief dollars, the mismanagement of those, and the West Virginia Supreme Court, in which we're in the middle of potentially one, maybe 2 justices being impeached, and who knows, maybe more on top of that. So
right.
This is a very busy time, and not necessarily in a good way for the state right now.
No, it's not. It's disappointing. The worst part about being laid up after my open heart surgery was, just the recovery period and not being able to get back to my day job or the legislature. But I got back finally on Sunday for these past interims, first day back, and started kind of catching up on everything. And first off, the flood recovery program and the scandals and controversy around that. I voted no in the fall of 2016 against the massive amounts of taxpayer dollars going into those programs, pretty much precisely because I thought, there was a high chance of abuse or mismanagement and incompetence and possible corruption. And I think we're going to be probably hearing a lot more come out about that. I don't buy that they were just kind of slow in spending the money, because, when have you guys ever heard that the government had problems spending taxpayer money?
It is odd.
So it is odd. There's a lot of things that just don't add up for me yet. We'd like to get to the bottom of that. But, you mentioned another thing, and of course those are the impeachment proceedings, which we passed during interims. We had a quick special session on this past Tuesday, passed a resolution to authorize the House Judiciary Committee to begin impeachment proceedings or the investigation process. And I did an interview back in January, and I basically stated that I thought all 5 of the Supreme Court justices should be impeached after I researched, all the sort of maladministration and the spending scandal of the public treasury. But I think there are many facets to this entire scope of affairs that continues to unravel regarding the state Supreme Court. Of course, you have Justice Alan Lawfrey is the easiest target. He was federally indicted by our esteemed U.S. attorney, who evidently may dream about becoming the next Elliot Ness. But, the most egregious thing I believe Justice Lawfrey did was lie and intentionally deceive, under oath I might add, to the House Finance Committee. There's ample evidence that suggests he did so, and giving testimony to the legislature, during this past regular session in Charleston. But however, the issues around the impeachment proceedings centers with the spending scandal and egregious mismanagement of public funds. So using the public treasury, for their own sort of personal luxurious living standards, that's egregious. So if you're going to apply maladministration and gross immorality, which are, two descriptive guidelines for impeachable offenses in the state constitution, then you have to apply, those standards, this egregious spending scandal, to the rest of the justices on the state Supreme Court. So essentially, under this standard, impeachment must be considered against all 5 current state Supreme Court justices, because, there are implications that others not only engaged in maladministration of public funds, but also intentionally deceived the state legislature about it over the past year or two. There's strong evidence also, I might add, that suggests all 5 Supreme Court justices have potentially deceived the public about their knowledge of spending down nearly $29 million in their budget to show less money on the books at year's end, to try and prevent or put up an argument by showing, pennies in their account at the end of the year, to push against the legislature from passing legislation to achieve oversight, budgetary oversight, over the state Supreme Court's budget. And there's a memo that was written by the clerk and dated November 2016 that says just that. We all were in agreement, that the justices of the state Supreme Court, we would spend down the surpluses that we have to prevent the Senate leadership and the House leadership from being able to have arguments to push to include the judiciary branch under legislative purview for budget purposes, in which we're the only state where the legislature doesn't have the power of the purse over the other 2 branches of government. So, but
Pat,
anyway.
that does bring up an interesting point. If the Constitution is set up where they do in fact function independently with no accountability to the legislature, you appropriate a block amount of funds to the Supreme Court for whatever reasons you do that. They have their own funding and accounting mechanism. They spend the money, therefore, the way they want it. Wouldn't their defense be, hey, we're not accountable to anybody? Is that even a defense?
You could put up that defense. However, the current Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court testified in a Senate committee, and it's in the post-audit legislative auditor's report that came out in May, and she was asked by, actually, Senator Mitch Carmichael, do you or any other justices were you asked about, were you aware of spending down your surplus budgets to have an argument against passing an amendment to put your budget underneath legislative oversight? And she answered in that committee, no, we were not aware of that at all.
Is that a lie, or did she not know?
Well, if you believe the memo dated November of 2016, she's either incompetent. Well, I'd say you're either incompetent and you forgot about the memo, which might not be intentional deception, or you did intentionally deceive the Senate committee, in which case, if you're that incompetent or you're intentionally deceiving, you probably shouldn't be Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. So, I think there's a lot of things going on here that really we have to consider. And let me make just a further key point here. The House Judiciary Committee is taking lead on gathering the evidence and testimony, to bring forth the articles of impeachment to the full House. But the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, John Schott, does not, in my opinion, have a firm grasp on what impeachment legally entails. He has gone around and stated multiple times that the so-called defendants the state Supreme Court justices named in the, that special session, and what we're looking into, are entitled to constitutional rights and due process. And he has also implied that the presumption of innocence applies as well as urging caution not even to express opinions publicly one way or the other. As this is dealing with the separation of powers and we should not be intruding on the judicial branch, he's even pushing for a rule that none of the state senators should be allowed to listen in at all or be informed of any of the open public deliberations going on the House side. And if any of these state senators do receive any information on public impeachment debate and deliberations in the House, then those state senators would be disqualified from voting later. That's what the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee is pushing. That's absurd. So let me be clear on this. There are absolutely zero constitutional due process rights when it comes to impeachment. And in fact, this is not a violation of the separation of powers here that we're having to be prudent about and consider. As Delegate, John Schott has stated over and over, this is exercising the separation of powers. This is the check and balance itself. The House of Delegates constitutionally has the sole power of impeachment. There is no due process involved because this is not a criminal justice proceeding. There is no presumption of innocence. This is judgment about whether or not those brought up during the impeachment proceedings have committed offenses as prescribed by the state constitution, including maladministration, corruption, high crimes or misdemeanors, gross immorality, incompetence, all of those definitions of impeachment in the state constitution.
You're not saying, Pat, that the justices don't get an opportunity to explain or defend themselves. What you're saying is, as this is not a criminal trial, we don't have to go through all of the due process that would be the same in a criminal trial.
Yeah, this is a political exercise.
They can testify and defend themselves and explain their point of view, obviously, but they're not entitled to constitutional due process. And I also find it very difficult to listen to men on the House Judiciary Committee give more deference and benefits of the doubt to these so-called justices, these sort of monarchs in the Supreme Court living high on the hog from the public treasury, when these same state delegates leading the House Judiciary Committee have willingly went after and debased real constitutional due process and civil liberties for the average guy and gal in our state of West Virginia on a whim, pushing bills through into law on a whim that severely depreciate the Bill of Rights. Maybe some of these guys would be backing Cataline and his populist conspirators trying to overthrow the state in conjunction with Julius Caesar, instead of backing Cato the Younger and Cicero and the true Republicans. I just don't get it. So,
Pat, can you hang on a second?
Sure, go ahead.
We're going to get into a commercial break here. We'll be right back with more. Delegate Pat McGeehan is our guest here on the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center Talk Line. This segment of our show was brought to you this morning by Bechtel Jewelers, West Virginia's largest Pandora retailer, Route 11 South Inwood, next to Viva Mexico.
Everybody's multiplying and they're walking around like flies, man.
It's the Jeep Celebration event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Martinsburg. Stop in now for great deals on a great line of Jeep products. Get $1,000 cash back on a 2019 Jeep Cherokee with financing at 0% for 60 months. How about a new 2019 Cherokee Latitude 4x4, only $219 a month, or a 2018 Jeep Wrangler JK for only $296 a month. Get bonus cash up to $6,000 off a 2018 Renegade, plus $500 trade. Stop by and test drive a Chrysler Pacifica and get free movie passes. It's all at the Jeep Celebration event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty on Kelly Island Road, or online at millerschryslerjeep.com. All payments based on approved credit, taxes, tags, and processing fees extra. See dealer for details.
Life is complicated, but your finances shouldn't have to be. At BCT, we simplify your financial life. Bank of Charlestown is a locally owned community bank with 7 conveniently located offices serving the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, Middleburg, Virginia, and their newest office in Hagerstown, Maryland. With over 140 years of experience, BCT is the tri-state area's choice for fast, convenient, and hassle-free banking solutions. Whether you are a high school senior looking for a student checking account, a college graduate purchasing a new car, a first-time homebuyer, or investing for retirement, BCT has flexible solutions to fit your lifestyle. BCT is committed to providing everyday ways to simplify your financial life. Also, make sure you are following BCT on Twitter and Instagram at MyBCT or like their Facebook page to see how BCT reinvests local deposits back into the communities they serve. BCT, we simplify your financial life.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
L.A. Roberts is Berkeley County's oldest jeweler, where every season is new and exciting. In fact, new is old school to us, and though it's nothing new, our old traditions like exceptional service, quality, and value maintain L.A. Roberts Jewelers as the old master among so many new kids on the block. Whether you are a newcomer or part of the old guard, entrust all your fine jewelry needs to L.A. Roberts, Old World Jewelers for a new age, in historic downtown Martinsburg.
Stepping out with my baby, can't be wrong to feel so right. It's for sure, not for maybe, that I'm all dressed up tonight.
Rolling out some Tony Bennett for Judy Boykin, who took in the show at the Sands in Bethlehem, PA this weekend. She said it was an incredible show. Tony Bennett's like 90 years old. Still putting on a great show.
You know, I've seen him on television perform at his age, and you're absolutely right. The voice has not left him, and he's still just as smooth and wonderful as ever.
He's Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
This segment of the show brought to you by the Washington Nationals. This Friday, be one of the first 25,000 to enter Nats Park. You get a Bryce Harper Patriotic Bobblehead presented by SAIC. It's the hottest giveaway of this summer for the Nationals. Go to nationals.com for tickets today. And Nationals are pretty good about sending us their bobbleheads. So I assume at some point we'll have a patriotic Bryce Harper bobblehead here in studio.
I think we need a Robin Dave bobblehead.
I don't even want to know what that's going to look like.
It'd be like one body with two heads on it.
Yours is eating food and playing with a fidget spinner.
Mr. Hornby, I want a bobblehead.
Mine is lecturing you to not do it. I'd be pointing my finger and shaking it at you. Let's go to the WVU Medicine Jefferson Medical Center talk line once again and bring back Delegate Pat McGeehan, who's back to work after successful heart surgery and has spent the last half hour with us. It's World UFO Day, by the way, today, and we're going to be talking with Dr. Bill Miller around 9:45 this morning. Pat, back to what we were talking about with the state Supreme Court justices and due process and the difference between a criminal trial and an impeachment proceeding. Are you, as a body, is the House scheduled to get together at some point in the near future and hear all this evidence and vote as to whether or not you'll be sending impeachment charges to the Senate?
Yeah, we don't know exactly how that timeline is going to be laid out yet. We don't know any dates. The resolution that we voted to approve on this past Tuesday in special session was to essentially authorize the House Judiciary Committee to begin the proceedings. You know, they're going to have to go through all the evidence, the legislative auditor's investigation, call witnesses to testify, and put together articles of impeachment. And it's open-ended. It's, the wording of the resolution is, one to all Supreme Court justices. So it's going to take some time, and we authorize them to be able to meet independently of, the entire legislature being down there in session, that special session, which is, very expensive. So need to minimize costs. So once they're done with that, then they will be called back to resume the special session. They will present their findings, and I expect there to be a lot of debate on the House floor, possibly some amendments to the articles, and we can approve all of the articles of impeachment they present, or we can approve part of them or none of them. and this is something very rare. I mean, and that's why, there's a lot of different viewpoints about how you proceed and what does an impeachment mean. But from my research, the impeachment is nothing to do with a criminal trial whatsoever. It's de facto a political, constitutional political means to check the other branches of government. So
Democrats wanted a hard deadline for these proceedings so that if impeachment did happen, we could have an elected Supreme Court justice as opposed to an appointed one. Did you fall one way or the other on that argument, Pat?
Not really. I kind of thought that was just a populist argument, and they needed to make hay out of something, and the only thing they can come up with was that. So, you really need to make sure you get this right. I mean, impeachment in this state has only occurred in modern history once before, and that was in the late 80s with A. James Manchin. Before that, I think the last time it was ever done was maybe the early 1920s. I can't remember. But, I mean, you can't rush this, and I think there's a lot of partisanship coming into play because, of course, Alan Laffery is a Republican, and so I think some of the Democrats I am suspicious of. They don't really. I'm not sure if they're so focused on, making sure that we hold people accountable for deviating from the rule of law. I think they're more focused on, embarrassing one or two individuals that happen to have an R after their name.
Delegate Jason Barrett on Friday said the Republicans could have begun looking into this information on the justices. It was known since January, easily could have been researched, and we could be further along in the process. That Republicans dragged their feet because Laffery's a Republican and didn't want to go through this. They wanted to sweep it under the rug and let it go away on its own with its own momentum. Yay or nay on that, Pat?
Well, I mean, I did an interview with the local TV station down there with Kenny Bass, the guy that broke all of this, alongside with Mike Pushkin, and I called for all 5 justices to be impeached. And
because you felt you had, Pat, because when you said that, you felt at that time and still think that all 5 of them have committed impeachable offenses. So why do we go through all of this that we're going through? Let's just get on with it, right? That's what I hear you saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to go through and lay out, the specifics, and that takes a little bit of time. I mean, that's how I feel, because I've done some research, but then again, I'm not on the House Judiciary Committee.
So how long should this process take, do you think? If it's just Alan Laffery, do you have a timetable in your mind as to how long this should take?
Well, Alan Laffery is a different case. I think you could do Alan Laffery. Unfortunately, I don't like talking about some of these names. You have to, but Alan Laffery, I think you could do. I mean, the biggest thing to me is he lied under oath in front of the legislative committee. So that's an impeachable offense. It's easily to prove. You could do that in a relatively short period of time. But again, all 5 justices are implicated. So for Jason Barrett to come out and say this isn't easy, we called about this in January. Okay, that's just partisanship. That's, I expect that from some of those guys. I mean, they're not in charge, all right? And you got to do this right. You got to go through the due diligence, make sure you mount a case, because, you also have to try this in the Senate. And some of these guys are going to refuse to resign. I don't think Alan Laffery, it's really in his head, feels like he did anything wrong. So, Well,
I would hope he doesn't feel that way.
Well, that's what I've been told by several folks. But, maybe I don't have reliable sources. So, anyway, it's unfortunate. I just think sometimes, Lord Acton said power tends to corrupt. And if you have control over your own budget and the money's not yours, abuses are likely to happen. And I think, unfortunately, this has got to some of their heads, and it's been going on for too long. So.
We were talking with J.B. McCuskey, who is the state auditor, last week, and he suggested to us that there is going to be, this is away from the state Supreme Court issue now, but more about the apartment, the building that was rented out for $1 million, some of these wasteful things, and he says there's going to be a lot more to come. Are you aware of some of the other things that the state auditor might have in his bag of tricks to be able to come out with and expose?
I'm not sure. I'm sure that he's got a couple other examples of, the whole Republican mantra of waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm sure he has a couple other examples, but there's plenty more waste than just, $1 million of rent, of lease payments, where the buildings weren't even being used. There's probably a lot more egregious examples out there, I would think. But we'll see. I'm not sure. I think you're going to see a lot more egregious abuses come out about the Department of Commerce, with the China energy deal, with some of the former Secretary of Commerce's business dealings, and quid pro quos within, say the China energy deal and others. And, there was a huge effort by many in Charleston, the legislature, to push for between 40 and 50 million more tax dollars, to go towards the Department of Commerce. Fortunately, that effort was stopped. And I remember I gave a floor speech, and so did Mike Folk, in early January, saying, hey, we're not going to stand for giving one more dime to the Department of Commerce, because, you have several people in there that have massive conflicts of interest. Several people own different contracting and engineering firms on the side that do a lot of work for the Department of Commerce and other government agencies. So, we can't have this going on. So, fortunately, that was stopped. But, get back to your point about some of these Democrats saying, hey, we were calling for impeachment of some of these justices back in January, like Alan Lawfrey. You know what? I don't really remember too much of that, despite maybe one guy that I work with, and that was Mike Pushkin in Charleston, a Democrat. I don't remember any of those other guys saying anything. You know what? The only thing I do remember was them enraging and inflaming the crowds with the teachers' strike. That's the only thing I remember, basically, them trying to do, is get them ramped up and angry and catering and pandering to some of those special interest groups. They weren't focused on trying to hold different elected officials accountable to the rule of law. And I think if some of them were honest, they'd probably admit that to you.
Pat, we're out of time. I appreciate yours this morning. Glad to hear that you're doing well, sir.
No problem. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and thanks again. And I really do appreciate you guys checking in on me and sending me those texts. That really helped me out. You can only read so many old books, and I really do appreciate it. So
Absolutely.
God bless you guys. Thanks again.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, roger that.
Been
Bye.
there myself. Appreciated it when it was done for me. Wanted to pay that forward. 9:46. Pat appearing courtesy of the WV Medicine Jefferson Medical Center Talk Line.
The WVU Medicine Spring Mills office building is now open. This new 3-story, 40,000 square foot facility is conveniently located off Interstate 81, Exit 20 at the intersection of US 11 and Campus Drive. The WVU Medicine Spring Mills Medical Office Building features many different offices and services for area residents. It's now home to urgent care, women's imaging center, lab services, and primary care pediatrics. The WVU Medicine Spring Mills office building now open to serve you.
Since 1877, Farmers and Mechanics insurance companies have proudly supported our local community. Farmers and Mechanics has the insurance products to meet your needs, including home, auto, farm, dwelling fire, business owners, and umbrella coverage. Please contact your local independent agency for a review of your insurance needs and ask for a policy from the company that knows you best. Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies, just off Edwin Miller Boulevard on Administrative Drive in Martinsburg. FMIWV.com. Are you looking for a full-service web design company right here in the Eastern Panhandle? Then look no further than Pro Design LLC, specializing in web design and development, web hosting, and application development. Pro Design is a locally owned company serving local clients since 1997 with a reputation of quality, creativity, and personal touch. Let Pro Design build or redesign your dream website. Find them online at professionaldesign.com or phone 304-676-9940.
Will Greer to David Sills is a winning combination WVU fans know well.
Greer throwing toward the end zone. Ball caught. Post pattern. Sills. Touchdown. David Sills holds it in.
The Mountaineers, Talk Radio WRNR, and your business is a dynamic combination like no other. Contact our station to add your company to the coverage of the great tradition of West Virginia Mountaineer football and basketball. Heard right here on Talk Radio WRNR, the Panhandle Sports radio station.
This segment of Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave brought to you by the Brown Funeral Homes and Cremations. Robert Fields and Sons, family-owned full-service funeral home, proudly serving our area since 1880. Glenn Beck Show coming your way at the top of the hour. Interesting revelation. Delegate McGeehan in that last segment that Justice Loffrey doesn't feel as if, according to what he's heard, I haven't heard this from Justice Loffrey, he's passing along what a source told him, that Justice Loffrey maybe doesn't feel as if he's done anything wrong. And I'm wondering, are you that arrogant, or are you that far removed from general society, or is that just something somebody's passing along? Because at a minimum, he has to agree that he did not supply truthful information to the House committee in which he was requested to appear. There doesn't seem to be any doubt, Dave, that he lied when he was in front of that House committee.
Well, there doesn't seem to be any doubt about that. And, of course, you've got 22 counts against him that came out, were announced by the U.S. attorney a couple of weeks ago, grand jury indictments. And so these are serious charges. So I don't know what world he's living in to think that he's done nothing wrong. But it is certainly his right to put forward a legal argument and a political argument in the case of impeachment that there is, in fact, that he didn't do. In his mind, he did not do anything wrong. The only defense, and I think we talked with Pat McGeehan about this, the only possible defense I could think of is that he really does believe that the legislative branch of government, the third branch of government in West Virginia, is, in fact, an independent silo, if you will, that doesn't really have to be accountable to any other branch of government. And that would have to be the reason that maybe in his mind that it's okay for me to take cars whenever I want that are state-owned, to drive them for any reason I want. It might even be okay not to tell the legislature the truth because
I don't have to answer them.
I don't have to answer them anyway.
But he has to know.
I mean, now I'm not putting that forward as an argument. I believe it. I'm just trying to answer your question. There's either a little insanity going on, or there's just a real firm belief that they are an independent silo, and they don't have to answer to anybody.
So I mean, I'm kind of insulted that I even have to be brought here in order to answer these questions, is what you're thinking.
Pat McGeehan referred to them as five monarchs.
Well,
I mean, and that's the way they behave.
If you are the top authority in the state and you don't have to answer to anybody, then why would you not be a monarch?
I think voters are going to take care of that issue this November by a pretty lopsided margin. I would imagine they're going to vote to change the Constitution so that the legislature is no longer has that kind of at least that financial independence, and so I think that's going to be changed.
If you are a justice
by a vote of the people,
you have to you have to know what the laws are of the state in regards to use of vehicles, state-owned vehicles. You have to understand, regardless of whether you have control of your budget or not. You've got to understand that the rules say you cannot use a taxpayer-provided vehicle for personal use.
You can't do that, nor can you drive a car to a meeting in Washington and then put in for mileage and then get the mileage money back and put it in your own pocket.
Two different sources.
Yeah, you certainly also know, any attorney would tell you that if you're under oath in front of a legislative committee, it doesn't matter who you are, you're supposed to tell the truth. You're under oath to tell the truth.
Right?
You know, I mean, it doesn't. I don't have to go to law school to know that. And so, yeah, it just sort of defies kind of the common sense rule. There's another thing here that I don't quite understand too. And when in talking to Pat McGeehan, he did go after the Democrats in general for trying to make this sort of a partisan issue.
Basically grandstanding.
Yeah, grandstanding. I have they probably are doing that. But when you're the minority party, you do that. I don't condemn the Democratic leaders in this state for taking shots, saying we should have started earlier. Whether we should have or not, I don't know. Or Republicans are reluctant to go out after Alan Lawfrey because he has an R by his name. Maybe, maybe not. I don't think those are big hits. I don't think they're moving numbers out there. I don't think they're solidifying their political base by it. But I do understand, and having been involved in legislatures in my career, where you are the minority party, you do certain things, I think, to remind voters that the folks in charge aren't doing a great job. So who do voters blame for all of this? Are they blaming Republicans or Democrats? I don't get a big sense right now that huge amounts of voters are saying, oh, this is the Democrats, that's their fault, or, you know, they were in charge for 80 years, they made all the rules, that's the reason that this is happening. But on the other hand, the Democrats can say, well, the Republicans are in charge now and all this is happening now. I don't get a sense out there as I talk to people that this is a huge Democratic or Republican Party problem. I just think right now voters are sensing we have a governor that doesn't show up for work. We have money that's not getting to people who need it to rebuild their homes. We've got vacant office space that we're paying, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not more, dollars, taxpayer dollars, for nothing. And on top of all of that, we've got a state Supreme Court that at least has the appearance of corruption as we sit here right now. And you cannot have a state Supreme Court that is corrupt. The system falls apart when the state Supreme Court is corrupt.
I have a waste, fraud, and abuse theory. Tell me if it holds any water. So we've uncovered the $990,000 plus
for the rent of the office or the whatever space.
J.B. McCuskey, the state auditor, says there's more announcements to come. We know about the flood relief money that
$150 million that is federal money that has not gotten to the people who need it to rebuild their lives.
And now we're reading that contracts have expired now, so no one's really sure what's going to happen to the money now because the federal contracts have expired on some of that money.
Someone ought to go to prison for that. So I mean, really, when you think of it, if those people don't get their money, someone's head needs to roll for that. If that's the outcome of all of this,
and not just a figurehead either.
I don't know who it is.
Not just a figurehead. So as more waste, fraud, and abuse is uncovered, I think at first people go, yeah, that's what we sent you there to do. But if it gets to a certain amount, I wonder if that backfires and the voters say, you know what, you're all out. And it actually backfires
the
on
old
Republicans.
Throw the bums out kind of thing.
Right. If enough is uncovered to the point where people are just overtly disgusted by everything going on there and they say everybody's out. Now, I wonder if that actually works against Republicans in uncovering more waste, fraud, and abuse. What do you think about that theory?
I think that it's one in which could potentially have some traction out there. And if you are right now running for the State House of Delegates and you are a Democratic candidate, running in an open seat or running against a Republican challenger, why not make the case that Charleston is broken? Because I think people might believe that right now. I think right now we're in at least in a time period where making the argument that Charleston isn't working right now is an argument that a lot of voters would believe. I'm going to go fix it. The Democrats can do that easier than the Republicans can. Because if you're a Republican running for re-election, the question might be asked, well, why haven't you done something about it already? Or if you're a Republican running in an open seat, you can't run against Charleston because it's your own party that's in control. On the other hand, the Republicans that are in there now can say, look what we've done. We uncovered the rents thing. We're removing the state Supreme Court bad guys, so they can make that argument as well. I don't know which side to believe.
It's 9:57. It's World UFO Day today, by the way, Dave.
Happy UFO Day. Happy UFO Day.
To you, yeah.
I hope you cite one.
Yeah, we'll be back for a final minute after this.
It's that time of year for loud bangs. No, not just thunderstorms, but fireworks. The city of Martinsburg reminds you that even though West Virginia State Code permits the sale of fireworks, discharging them within city limits is prohibited. And this Martinsburg City Ordinance is in force all year long. Set off fireworks within the city of Martinsburg and you're risking a fine of $500, 30 days in jail, or both. Don't risk it. The discharge of fireworks within city limits is against the law. If you see or hear fireworks being discharged, call the Martinsburg Police Department at 304-264-2100. That's 304-264-2100. Remember, it's against the law to set off fireworks in the city of Martinsburg today and every day. This message paid for by the city of Martinsburg.
Hi, this is Carly Hornby. You're listening to my daddy's radio station, Talk Radio, WRNR.
Our last segment was brought to you by the Joe Ferretti Law Office, delivering first-rate service and results for our clients at the Joe Ferretti Law Offices. Big thanks to Pat McGeehan in this last segment and Financial Phil as well. The Glenn Beck Show is coming up next. What are you doing the rest of today, Davey?
I'm going to go to my office/studio in Rockville, Maryland for the day today. Got a couple projects to work on.
Good luck with that commute.
I appreciate that. Going in is not a problem.
Coming back is
Coming back is a little bit of a problem.
No traffic on the way in at this hour. It's 10 o'clock. Glenn Beck is next. This is Talk Radio WRNR Martinsburg. Have a great day. Talk to you again in 22 short hours.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by TheraWorks Relief.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. A holiday